Thanks, everybody. And first of all, you should all know I'm from Laramie, Wyoming, and I spent most of my growing up in the arts in Denver. And I love Denver. It is one of the most amazing places I've ever been, and it still is to me. And I flew in last night, so I didn't get to see those mountains, but I saw them today, and it just breaks my heart to not be here. So you're all very, very lucky to be here. And I just wanted to get a show of hands. How many of you are artists? Yeah, that's great. And how about running arts organizations? And how about people in the creative industry? Oh, what a great mix. Well, turn around and look at everybody. I want you to introduce yourself to the person next to you if you don't know them quickly. Go ahead, do it, do it. There you go, there you go. Great. So I know we'll have time for networking, but I noticed that you all were in your creative clusters earlier. And so you have to meet your people next to you after this. And I know it's a little disruptive, but I always like people to get to know each other. So tonight I'm going to talk about arts districts. So if you can go to the next slide. This is the Rhino District here. And at Americans for the Arts, this is the definition we use. It's an anchor of attraction and robust economic activity. Of course, the Rhino District is one of them. So next slide. And right now, there are over 600 districts in the U.S. that we know of. Some cities have formal boundary lines. A lot of places have informal, sort of very holistic districts. And of course, there are many states now who have enacted legislation. Of course, Colorado has done that. Next slide. So these are the states, and I'm from Maryland, but really from Wyoming, but I am from Maryland now. And we were the second state to enact district legislation. I wrote it, and very exciting. And so after that, many states followed, and some states have more incentives in their legislation than other states, but suffices to say it's a really great marketing tool to help promote the arts in communities. Next slide. So these are the different kinds of districts, and I'm sure you can find yourself in these districts. One of them, of course, is a downtown area arts focus, taking many of the different activities that happen and focusing them. Cultural production, you can go to Paducah, Kentucky, and that's a really great example of a place that has cultural production where you actually have artists in a community who've gotten incentives, they live there, they create, and they market their wares. Cultural compounds, that's where sort of like what you have here with the Betcher Concert Hall, the Convention Center, all of that together is creating a compound. So you can go on. But all the districts are local, and I think that's really important to remember. They're all unique across the country. There is not a cookie-cutter approach to creating these districts. So I'm going to talk about a couple of districts out there that I think are very interesting, doing interesting things, both kind of urban and rural. So this one is Allegheny County, Maryland. It's way in western Maryland, but its proximity to 3 hubs is very important. So you've got Baltimore, Washington, and Pittsburgh, all about 2.5 hours away. This community was very blighted. During the second sort of industrial revolution, after that left, they had no industry except for the state prison. So you can go to the next slide. So a couple of artists who happened to be man and wife both worked in the creative economy. They worked all of the craft fairs across the country. They were high-end artists, but they really wanted to live somewhere calmer, an easy place to get their things to market, and also a place that they could travel to and from very easily. So they located in this town called Cumberland, Maryland, which is where the prison is. And they realized that there was a lot of vacant space in the downtown and a lot of loft space. So they relocated there. You can go to the next slide. And so they also decided that they would apply to be an arts and entertainment district for the state of Maryland. And in the state of Maryland, artists get property tax abatement. So if you're qualifying artists, yeah, yay, you don't have to pay property tax. And so they decided to apply, and they received it. And so now they have an artist relocation program where they have a lot of artists who are interested, and they come to this Allegheny County, which is a very beautiful place, right on the C&O Trail to Pittsburgh. And the other great thing that they've done is they've worked very much with the Chamber of Commerce. So when a new business comes into their town, guess who they call first? They call Andy Vick, who runs the Allegheny County Council on the Arts, who's the artist who started this. And they say, they say, Andy, we have a business who's coming in. Will you come meet with them? Or the last time I talked to Andy, he said, the new president of the hospital's not sure they want to move there. His wife's like, not sure. And so he met with the wife, and she's like, oh my God, this is a fantastic place because it is so rich. So next slide. So some of the things they do, they also collaborate with another town nearby, which has the community college. And so they have also helped renovate a theater there. Of course, they're traditional arts. They're in Allegheny County in the Appalachians, and so they focus on a lot of traditional arts as well. So next slide. And one of the great things that they've done too is they've expanded their local programming using the artists that have relocated, but also the community members that are there. And one of my favorite things they have is this thing called the Artomat machine. So in that part of Maryland, they had a lot of cigarette machines, who knows why. So they took the cigarette machines, and artists made them into vending machines for art. So for $5, you can get a piece of original art from a local artist, which I think it's so cool, very fun. Next slide. And they have a couple of big signature events. And for them, big is probably not what you're thinking, but for a community of their size, it attracts a lot of new people. And one of them is this plein air art event where they get artists all around the world to come in and paint part of the Appalachian Trail, which is right there. So next slide. So the other example I want to mention is in Cleveland. Cleveland is doing amazing things with artists. They have a very robust program for artists training, artist documentation. They really use artists to help reinvigorate Cleveland and to make it a stable community. So one of the things they did is they put together this great initiative that works with their community development corporations and their neighborhood associations to apply for funds to help reinvigorate their community, but an artist has to be part of the project. So they have $500,000 to develop these replicable models to get revitalization going in some of their communities. So next slide. So they have 5 main components, and I love some of these components. You can see all of them, but the one that I really like is they support supplies and services such as travel and mailing expenses and full-time 2-year project managers for artists. So if you're a creative and you're an artist and you're trying to get a business started, you can get support to help you get support. So the kinds of things like all the mailings and stuff you want to do to sell your work, they help provide that. And in this particular neighborhood, Collingwood, they produced a really great website that shows all the different art events there, the neighborhood community events. And just an FYI, in Cuyahoga County, where this is located, they passed legislation some years ago to get a percentage of the tobacco tax for the arts. And they give $17 million away now for arts and neighborhood organizations, not just strictly arts institutions. So it's very robust. And as you can see, this is their great website, very funky, really fun. So what are some keys to success for districts? And I know Jason talked a bit about this, but I think it's really important to smash it into your heads again, how important it is for these particular things to be on the top of your mind when you're trying to do arts collaborations, district work. I think, your local arts agency, here you have a great collaboration with your local arts agency. They're sponsoring this tonight. I think the other piece is earn the trust and the respect of the local arts community. I can't stress that enough. The districts that I see around the country that work, that's the main thing, and they're authentic. So you can go to the next slide. So again, why do districts matter? Well, they matter because they're unique to their community. Remember that. You guys are all here because you are artists or running districts, and they're successful because they're unique and they're rich and they represent your community. They can help revitalize neighborhoods. We know that. It's happening. They also serve as a focal point to brand a city's unique cultural identity, and you're doing a great job with your districts in Denver for that. Next one. So I just want to talk briefly, these next two slides, about funding. Jason's talked about funding. I think I pulled this off of the Beverly, Massachusetts website, because this is the mayor's office that put this out. The great thing about Artworks is that it's a collaboration with your city and you. And I think you have to know, Jason can't say this, but it's also about local politics. If you can go to your mayor and say, look, we have this grant we can apply for, but you got to be part of it, and you bring it back to them, you are gold, man. You're gold. I used to run an arts council. When I brought money back to my community, that was the great thing. And so always remember that, you know, it is about politics. I hate to say it, but oftentimes it is. So next slide. So the other one is Arts Place, which Jason talked about. I guess Jason said now it's 18 organizations that are partnering on Arts Space. On their website it says 13, but that's another place for funding. The other places I want to mention, you want to look at community development block grants, tax increment financing, state arts council funds, also your transportation funds, housing funds. There are a lot of different pots of money that you can look at when you're developing your projects. Next slide. So one of the things I wanted to just briefly talk about is, you know, as I said, we know that cultural districts really help the economy. Well, yeah, but we don't have stats, and people like stats. And so we were very lucky to get some funds from the National Endowment for the Arts to really do some research and fairly significant work on districts. So this particular sign I love. It's in Pittsburgh, and it actually notes their cultural district. It's the only one I've seen in the country. Next slide. So in 1998, we did the only handbook, Americans for the Arts, on cultural districts. It's still the only thing out there. There's stuff out there, but if you were to go to your mayor or you know, your community neighborhood association and say, I want to start a district, there are a lot of things that the state has, a lot of things around the country, but nothing that's one thing. That's what this is. So we need to update this. We need to get on the bandwagon and update it. So next slide. So we also know that there are 600 plus districts. We know that many states are thinking about adopting legislation. We need more evaluation and documentation, and we need tools. The thing that I worry about a lot is you also have a lot of, sorry for developers, you can shut your ears, but you have some crafty developers out there who say, dang, we're going to name our development arts and entertainment, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? We're going to put a movie theater there, and that's it. Well, that's not a real cultural district or an arts and entertainment district, and you know that. And it's really important that we document those kinds of things as well, because we really don't want those things to happen. I'm sorry, but we don't. We want authentic districts out there, but we need research to show how to do that. We need to guide developers who really do, and you have some fantastic ones in the audience here, who are progressive, who really do want to do the right thing for their community, but they don't know how to do it. There's nowhere to go. So we're going to create resources for them. So you can go to the next slide. So we have a 3-year project. These are not years, they're in phases. I'm not sure what'll happen when, but a few things that are key. One of the studies we're going to be doing is just a basic survey of all the districts in the US. So we have some baseline information because we don't really know what all the districts look like. The other thing is we're going to look at property tax. So we know that one constant is that everybody pays property tax, for-profit businesses that is. So what did the property tax look like before the district started, and what does it look like now? We know that we can get that data. The other things are doing a pre-conference in Pittsburgh. Our conference, as Deborah said, is coming up. It's in June, and the pre-conference is June 14th. It's going to be a very hands-on, great conference. I'll talk about it in a second. But the other pieces are some good instructional things like webinars. We're going to do some case studies. But I think one of the big pieces is a DIY site. So you can go and you can see where all the districts are in the US. If a mayor comes back and says the state just enacted legislation and you have to do it, and you have to be able to go and say, well, here's how we should evaluate this before we start down this path of having districts. So a lot of different tools that you can use. And then finally, we want to have a national symposium, a dialogue, because it's also great for us to talk about ourselves and together, but we also need to get the politicians out there, the mayors, the county council members, the governors, to talk about the value of these districts. So hopefully after we get all of our research done, we'll be able to come and have a national symposium and a half-day dialogue or full day about the value of these and what they're doing for the economy and tourism. So next slide. So I want to thank again the National Endowment for the Arts, who gave us seed money for this project, and we're hoping to get more funds. But they took a leap of faith and we're very excited about it. So next slide. So I mentioned the conference. So it is June 13th through 14th. The interesting thing is the second day is going to be with public artists and public art practitioners, which will be really interesting because a lot of our districts have a lot of public art. So we're going to have actually a session called the Wedding of Arts Districts and Public Art. Sometimes it doesn't work so well, so we want to look at that. But the first day is going to be very practical, a lot of how-tos. One of the things I'm most excited about is our keynote is Mark Davey. He's from England with Future City, and they're doing some great, really great projects. And it's a little unique because it's not here in the US. And finally, there's going to be one-on-one meetings with experts in the field of districts, whether it's artist space, artist housing, financing, a lot of variety of things. So I hope you all come. And then finally, I just had to give a plug. Arts advocacy is really important, and I know that you advocate in Colorado, but every year we have Arts Advocacy Day in DC, where people come from all around the country. We go up on Capitol Hill. We're very well received. This year we have a lecture every year, and this year our keynote is Yo-Yo Ma. It's free. And then Arts Advocacy Day is a very sophisticated amount of advocacy training, as well as visits to the Hill. So I hope that y'all might think about coming. That's April 8th and 9th in DC. When I was in Wyoming, I was on the State Arts Council, and I remember going to DC for Arts Advocacy Day, and it was amazing. So I hope you might join us there. Arts advocacy is very important to this whole mix. And so, you know, come along and be an arts advocate. And let us get more money for the National Endowment for the Arts. So thank you very much, and I'll be here for questions.